is no truth. There is only perception.
The power of perception, how narratives shape history and society. 1. Introduction. The role of perception in defining truth. The fundamental questions of knowledge and truth. How do we know what we know? Can truth exist independently of perception, or is it entirely constructed through the narratives we encounter? Are vital for grasping the complexities of reality in a world where our beliefs are often dictated by perception. While truth is conventionally viewed as an objective phenomenon, comprising facts and realities that exist irrespective of individual interpretation, the manner in which we comprehend truth is rarely neutral or unbiased. Instead, it is invariably filtered through a multitude of external influences, including authority, culture, and media, which continuously shape and, at times, distort our understanding of the world. In the inaugural video of this series, titled What is Truth and Who Decides?, we explored the concept that truth can be manipulated by those wielding power. We examined how perception, rather than an inherent grasp of reality, often governs what individuals accept as factual. This observation leads to a pivotal thesis. Perception functions as the lens through which we interpret our environment, and those who control the prevailing narrative ultimately shape our understanding of reality. This concept lays the groundwork for an in-depth investigation into the mechanisms by which narratives influence both individual and collective consciousness. 2. Historical control of narratives, shaping perception through power. The adage that history is written by the victors aptly encapsulates how influential figures and nations have crafted narratives to serve their interests, frequently obscuring uncomfortable truths in the process. Those who emerge victorious from conflicts, be they military, political, or cultural, often assume control over the recollection and interpretation of events. This capacity to dictate perception enables them to solidify their legacy and maintain their authority, effectively granting them the power to define truth for entire societies. A salient illustration of this phenomenon can be found in Richard Nixon's War on Drugs. Nixon perceived African Americans and anti-war hippies as his most significant political adversaries. In response, he engineered a narrative that associated Black Americans with heroin and hippies with marijuana, a framing that permitted his administration to enact draconian drug policies disproportionately targeting these communities. Under the pretext of safeguarding society from a purported drug epidemic, these policies served as a political tool designed to suppress dissent and control these groups, thereby reinforcing Nixon's power while distorting public perceptions of both drug use and the individuals who engaged in it. This manipulation of perception mirrors the earlier case of George Washington's historical image. As the first president of the United States and a symbol of American virtue and independence, Washington occupies a revered place in the nation's collective memory. However, a lesser-known aspect of his personal life, his use of marijuana, has been conspicuously sidelined within the curated historical narrative. Today, marijuana is often demonized and criminalized within various legal and political frameworks, despite the fact that individuals within the very institutions responsible for its prohibition frequently utilize it alongside other controlled substances. The plant itself has remained unchanged since Washington's time. However, the prevailing perception has undergone a radical transformation. This shift illustrates how those in positions of power adeptly manipulate societal perceptions, reshaping cultural norms to delineate what is deemed acceptable or deviant in accordance with their objectives and interests. The manipulation of perception extends beyond individual figures, encompassing entire historical movements. For instance, colonialism has frequently been portrayed as a noble, civilizing mission, effectively concealing the violence and exploitation inflicted upon indigenous populations. Similarly, the narratives surrounding wars often emphasize heroism while downplaying the atrocities committed in the name of conflict. These controlled narratives significantly shape collective memory and public opinion, frequently simplifying or distorting truths to reinforce existing power structures. Ultimately, perception functions as a tool wielded by the powerful, who utilize it to influence the beliefs and understanding of entire societies. By exercising control over the narrative, they define the boundaries of what is considered truth, ensuring that their version of history prevails while dissenting voices and inconvenient facts are marginalized or forgotten. 3. The Euro Mind, a case study in narrative creation. The concept of the Euro mind represents a worldview that prioritizes corporate materialism, conquest, and competition over harmony with nature and community. This mindset has profoundly shaped modern systems and societal norms, particularly since the 1500s, when European colonial expansion began to dominate global interactions. The Euro mind is not merely a philosophical stance. It embodies a narrative that has driven the development of economic structures, political institutions, and cultural practices that have come to define much of contemporary society. The Euro mind has significantly impacted the perception of truth among individuals and communities. It conditions populations to accept specific beliefs without question, such as the notions of perpetual progress, the necessity of dominance, or the perceived superiority of Western civilization. These ideas have become so deeply entrenched in global consciousness that they are often regarded as self-evident truths rather than products of a specific historical and cultural context. Systems birthed from the Euro mind, such as the 9-to-5 workday, capitalist economic frameworks, and the exploitation of natural resources, have become normalized over time, despite their disconnect from natural rhythms and ethical considerations. These artificial norms are presented as the sole viable way of life, conditioning individuals to accept them as the natural order. The disconnect between these systems and the natural world often goes unnoticed, as the narratives surrounding them have been meticulously constructed to appear as established facts. 4. How perception becomes reality. The mechanism of control. Narratives, when reiterated and reinforced over time, possess the capacity to transform artificial truths into widely accepted realities. This process transcends mere persuasion, creating an environment where falsehoods become functional within a specific context. A classroom analogy aptly illustrates this phenomenon. Consider a teacher instructing students that 1 plus 1 equals 11. Although this equation is fundamentally incorrect, through repetition and the authority of the instructor, students may be conditioned to accept it as truth. Over time, they may embrace this statement not because it reflects reality, but because it represents the truth within the educational system they inhabit. Propaganda and media serve critical roles in this process of perception manipulation. The framing of political events by news outlets, the selection of stories that receive emphasis or are omitted, and the prioritization of certain content by social media algorithms all contribute to shaping collective perception. Contemporary examples abound, from the portrayal of political candidates to the framing of global conflicts. The media's capacity to influence public perception underscores how artificial narratives can be constructed and perpetuated over time. Psychological concepts such as cognitive dissonance and the illusory truth effect further elucidate this phenomenon. Cognitive dissonance arises when individuals experience discomfort from reconciling contradictory beliefs, often leading them to conform to the prevailing narrative as a means of alleviating that discomfort. The illusory truth effect posits that repeated exposure to information, regardless of its veracity, increases the likelihood that it will be perceived as true. Together, these concepts elucidate how perception can be manipulated through the ongoing reinforcement of specific ideas, ultimately transforming them into accepted truths. 5. Nature versus artificial perception. The disconnect from reality. Modern society increasingly operates within systems that are increasingly detached from the natural world, resulting in distorted perceptions of what constitutes the natural or the right. One salient example of this disconnect is the framing of environmental destruction as progress. Industrial expansion, resource extraction, and urban development are often lauded as indicators of human achievement, even as they contribute to ecological degradation. This narrative prioritizes profit over the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants, distorting perceptions of what is genuinely beneficial for society. Returning to the earlier example of marijuana, the evolution of its perception underscores how power structures shape societal norms. While the plant itself remains unchanged, its representation has been manipulated to align with the interests of those in power. This shift mirrors broader societal norms that have been co-opted to serve the needs of prevailing power structures rather than adhering to natural truths. Over time, these artificial perceptions become deeply entrenched in collective consciousness, even as they remain disconnected from reality. The hamster wheel metaphor aptly captures this dynamic. Individuals, akin to caged animals, are conditioned to pursue artificial goals and desires, such as material success or social status, while remaining estranged from authentic fulfillment and a true understanding of their natural selves. This cyclical pursuit of consumption and competition is perpetuated by narratives that inhibit individuals from questioning the systems within which they exist. 6. Breaking free from artificial narratives, reclaiming perception. To extricate oneself from these artificial narratives, cultivating awareness and critical thinking is paramount. By interrogating the stories to which we have been conditioned to acquiesce, we can begin to challenge the status quo and reclaim our perceptions of reality. This process necessitates an investigation into historical narratives, a critical analysis of media representations, and an exploration of alternative perspectives that contest dominant paradigms. Reconnecting with nature constitutes another essential step in reclaiming perception. By returning to a more organic and harmonious mode of living, individuals can perceive the world as it truly exists, rather than through the distorted lens of artificial systems. Practices such as mindfulness, immersing oneself in nature, and engaging with indigenous wisdom can facilitate reconnection with authentic selves and the natural rhythms of the planet. Ultimately, the objective is to encourage individuals to reflect on the narratives that shape their perceptions of reality. To what extent have external forces influenced our beliefs, and how can we begin to discern and dismantle these artificial truths to reconnect with something more genuine? This call to action invites individuals to take ownership of their perceptions and challenge the systems that seek to manipulate them. 7. Conclusion: the power of perception. In conclusion, perception constitutes a potent force that significantly influences our understanding of truth and reality. Those who control the dominant narrative possess the capacity to manipulate public opinion, distort history, and condition individuals to accept artificial norms. However, through heightened awareness of this influence, we can begin to reclaim our comprehension of truth and reality.